looking for those little tiny bits of knowledge that would make this whole process of moving to Florida or living in Florida a little bit easier than it would be if you're just to move here blindly. Well, in today's video, what I'm going to do is cover 5 things that I think you should know. And they're pretty much, they're widely known throughout Florida, but if you don't live here, you're not going to know them. But there's 5 things that I think you should know if you're looking to relocate here to Florida. What's up, everyone? It's Thomas with Real Broker here in St. Augustine, Florida, and I help people just like yourself relocate to the state of Florida. So if you're looking to buy, sell, or invest here in Florida, I would love to be able to help you. Me and my team, all we try to do is give you the information so that you can make an educated decision what you want to do, which is buy, sell, or invest here in Florida. So in today's video, I'm going to cover a couple of topics. We're going to talk about the Florida real estate market. We're going to talk about the hidden costs of living in Florida, but we're also going to talk about some of the hidden gems that you may not be aware of here in the state of Florida. We're also going to talk about the weather here, and we're also going to talk about some seasonal strategies that'll help you out and make you a master of living here in the state of Florida. So the first thing I want to talk about is going to be more focused on the real estate space here in Florida, and we're going to talk more about the market later in this video, so make sure you stay tuned for that. But I really want to talk about the hidden costs of living in Florida that when you're moving to a new area, you're probably not considering, right? And there's a couple of things that you maybe, of course, are aware of, but there's a couple things that you aren't. So I think this is probably one of the bigger sections of this entire video that you need to pay attention to. Now, a couple of the main things to know about the real costs of living here in the state of Florida is that we have no state income tax. So if you are working a job where you're paying income tax, the differences in some of the things I'm going to cover later, like the insurance and the toll roads and things like that, that could really be offset by the difference in the income tax level here because there is none. On top of there being no state income tax, the median sale price across the entire state of Florida is only around $400,000. And that's about the same median sale price of what we're going to see across the United States. So it's not necessarily going to be more expensive or less expensive than the majority of the areas in the United States. Now, that's not counting, of course, like, hey, if you're looking in Miami, it's going to be a little bit more expensive. If you're looking in like downtown Orlando or like one of the prominent neighborhoods there, it's going to be more expensive. Tampa, going to be more expensive. But in general, across the entire state of Florida, there is a good bit of affordability, though many Floridians are going to roast me in the comments here. It's nowhere near as affordable as it was 5, 10, 20 years ago. It's definitely changed a lot. Okay, so one of the hidden costs, and you may know this because, of course, it's been on the news for, several years now, is really going to be surrounding the homeowner's insurance in the state of Florida. And that's also going to tie in with flood insurance. Now, there's 2 different policies there, right? You have your basic homeowner's insurance, and then you also have flood insurance, which you may or may not be required to get depending on how you purchase the property. If you buy a property in cash, you don't have to put any insurance on it at all. You're just taking the risk at that point. If you buy it with a mortgage and you're in a flood zone outside of flood zone X, you're more than likely going to be required by the lender to get flood insurance. And this is where the costs, we're going to see the biggest difference in cost when we're talking about insurance between the homeowner's insurance and the flood insurance. Now, what I want to do is just take a look. I actually have an email between me and my preferred insurance carrier. He's Justin Thomas with Brightway Insurance. He's literally fantastic. So if you need insurance, he is my go-to guy here in the northeastern Florida area, and he can probably help you out anywhere in the entire state of Florida. But what we did is I had someone who was looking at a property here in Avondale. Super beautiful. Me and my wife actually considered moving to Avondale, even though the majority of our business is here in St. Augustine, just because of the neighborhood setup that they have there. It's right along the riverfront. You're south of like 5 Points and Riverside, which are another group of neighborhoods that are very prominent in Jacksonville, where there's a lot of great restaurants, a lot of walkability. And then there's also a park really in the middle of it. And there's not too many park systems here in the northeastern Florida area because we really rely heavily on our beaches. Either way, a lot of the homes there are built in the mid 1900s. So you have a lot of like Cape Cod style homes. You have a lot of ranchers. You have a lot of Tudor style, which is more of a style that me and my wife like versus the new construction homes that we see in the state of Florida across the entire state. Most of the inventory in our area was built pretty much after 1990. So you're going to see a lot more newer styles, a lot more open concepts. But for some people, just like myself and my clients, we like an older style where it has a little bit more charm. So Avondale has a ton of that, but one problem with that is that a good bit of Avondale sits in flood zone AE. It borders the St. Johns River, so that means that you could have some flooding in your property. So when we did a deep dive on this property for these buyers, we just took a look at the homeowner's insurance, and we also took a look at how much the flood insurance would cost for this home. Now, of course, every home is going to be different. It depends on the age of the home, depends on if there's some wind mitigating factors, depends on the elevation of the home itself and what flood zone it's in. That's really going to factor into the cost of all this, right? But I just want to give you a good idea. We're here in northeastern Florida, so it is going to be different. If you're in South Florida, it's just going to be more expensive. But I wanted to give you a good idea of what's going on here in northeastern Florida, so you have a good idea in general of what flood insurance could run you. So when you're taking a look at just homeowners insurance for a property that was built in 1940 sitting in flood zone AE, the homeowners insurance on a monthly basis comes out to around $270 a month, which is actually on the higher end for a lot of the things that you see in our area because, like I said before, most of the homes are new. Now, if you're taking a look at the flood insurance, that's really where the majority of costs are going to go. It's almost the exact same amount as what it's going to cost you for your basic homeowner's insurance. Whereas most homes here in northeastern Florida, you don't need to have flood insurance at all because you're not in a flood zone that requires it. So the flood insurance for the specific home was around $2,700 per year, additional to that $270 per month for your homeowner's insurance. So that's really the biggest chunk of change that you're going to have to come out of your pocket, outside of your mortgage and taxes, of course, that is going to change and really be kind of hidden amongst like, okay, hey, the purchase price is this, my mortgage is going to be this, but then your insurance is really going to blow that out in your monthly payment. It's going to blow it up a lot more than you're probably expecting. So that's one of the major hidden costs that we're seeing when people are relocating to the area and they're not expecting it. With that being said, if you're looking to buy like a new construction home that's in flood zone X, which you're not required to have flood insurance, you're probably going to spend around $150 a month, maybe $200, depending on the size of the home. Because all these homes are built brand new, they're all built with the wind mitigation factors. They're built to a different standard, a different code than what we had, 70, 80 years ago. So it's just a lot cheaper to insure. Aside from the homeowner's insurance and flood insurance, also your deductible is probably going to be higher depending on your flood risk and what the insurance carrier and what you're comfortable with is probably going to be higher, right? So just factor in that deductible factor if you are looking into a home in a flood-prone area. It's something that you're going to have to consider. Now, with that being said, Florida's pretty flat. The majority of Florida does lie within a flood zone. If you're in flood zone X, this is like an area where it's like there's 99% of a chance that it's not going to flood there, but there's still always that 1%. So just keep that in mind and don't reference my video and be like, oh, this guy lied to me. I'm giving you the information that we have, guys. And let's move on to the next topic now. The second thing that I think is important when you're moving to the state of Florida to know about is that most people within the state of Florida, they actually vacation within the state of Florida. Now you have a couple of people that they still want to see some mountains, so they go up to Georgia and Tennessee. But within our state, there are so many things to do. Now, a lot of people, when they think of Florida, they think of Disney, right? Or they think of going down to South Beach in Miami, or maybe even going to the Florida Keys. But aside from that, there is one really, really cool thing that I think you need. Well, there's several cool things, but one thing that was a surprise to me, I didn't know about it until I was like 20-something years old. And I think it'll be a surprise to you as well, because it's something that it's not really talked about when we're talking about the state of Florida. And that's going to be the natural springs that are really within the center of the state of Florida, which are really beautiful and really amazing. So if you're into kayaking, paddle boarding, if you just want to go do some snorkeling, maybe even some, I know there's some diving there as well. I don't know how deep they go. I'm not going to do that. It kind of makes me a little nervous. But you have that opportunity here in the state of Florida. And I'm not even lying to you. I don't think I learned about it until I was like 25 or 26. I'd been living here the majority of my life, and then I was like, wait, they have like natural springs in the state of Florida. It seems kind of stupid that I didn't know this. So just to give you a couple ideas, there's over 700 springs within the state of Florida, but there are some big ones that I think you want to check out. There's Wakulla Springs, so if you're looking to look at like manatees, you want to do some snorkeling, that's a great place to go. There's also Devil's Den, which, I mean, if you just do a quick Google on it, it's like this little cave where you can just walk down into it, and then it's natural natural spring water, clear as day. You can look right through it, and the majority of all these springs are around 72 degrees year round, so it's really comfortable to go to visit pretty much any time throughout the year. So I think this is something that is really underrated for the state of Florida, especially for an outdoorsy person. Because when we are talking about Florida, most people think about the traditional things like we listed before. But this could really be a great activity for you and your family, or for just you and a significant other to go check out, hang out in the Springs for a day. It's really beautiful and it's definitely worth it to check out. And most people don't know about it, so it's not as touristy as we see other areas of the state of Florida. So if you're looking at like Disney, I mean, God forbid, I mean, that can be a mess going there. Okay, and the third secret about living in the state of Florida, moving here, buying here, whatever that's going to be, is we're going to talk about the real estate market. So we're going to shift back up to more real estate related stuff. And I think this is going to be important for you because you're considering your timing and when that's going to be for you. And I think when we're talking about the real estate market across the entire state of Florida, it's going to be pretty cyclical. Most markets have their up and their down, their up and their down. And Florida is no different. So if you're trying to find the best deal and time that up with your timeline, you really need to take a look at the seasonal patterns of historical averages throughout the entire state of Florida. And they're all pretty much the same, right? So typically around this time of year, really between, let's say September to January, February, you're going to find your best deal on the market. Now, we're talking about pricing, we're talking about incentives from builders, concessions from sellers. This is going to be the time to find the best deal because this is when our market is typically slower. The peak of our market is going to be summer, and that's because a lot of people have off, kids are in transition between schools, and that's just really when people want to transact. So we see the majority of our activity during the summer months, and it really starts to peter off towards the end. Then once we see November, December, we call it a Santa rally. We see a little bit of peak, and I think that's because people come down here. They're coming from the north, they're cold, they're freezing, they come down here, they see, oh, it's 70 degrees here in the middle of December, middle of January. That's pretty sweet. Maybe I should just buy a place here so I have a place to get away. So I think that kind of pushes our end of the year a little bit higher, but it's still nothing compared to the middle of our year here in Florida. So if you're trying to time the market, knowing this data is going to be the best thing for you because if you're looking for the best deal, it's almost always going to be in October of every single year. But it's not going to change too much once you get into November, December, January, February. Once we hit the March timeframe, spring break, we start to see the market start to pick up a lot more, and then it goes through summer all the way through August, and then we rinse and repeat that pretty much every single year. And here's another thing that I don't want you guys to get stuck into. So I work in northeastern Florida, right? You can see living in St. Augustine behind me, but I have a ton of referral partners across the entire state. If you find someone that says, hey, I can sell anywhere in Florida. If you want to buy a house in Miami, you want to buy a house in Jacksonville, you want to buy a house in Tampa, I can help you. Do yourself a favor and delete their number because there is no way that they can be an expert, have their finger on the pulse in every single one of these markets. I only do transactions in northeastern Florida. If you're looking at Duval County, Flagler County, Putnam County, or St. Johns County, which is where St. Augustine is, I'm your guy, right? If you're going to Volusia, which is a county south of Flagler, I'm going to send you to someone else because in reality, it's over an hour drive for me and I don't want to drive that far. But also, I'm not an expert in that market. I don't know what's going on in that market like I do here in St. Johns County, and I wouldn't feel comfortable representing you. So I'm going to refer you to a great agent in that area. So if you're watching any other videos, if you're talking to anyone who's like, hey, I can sell to you anywhere in this entire state of Florida, well, technically, yeah, they're right. I'm licensed in the state of Florida. I can sell anywhere, but I'm not an expert everywhere. I'm only an expert in a couple of areas, and I think that's really important to know if you are looking to make the move down here. The fourth secret that only the locals know here in Florida is that you need to have a seasonal strategy for going to the best places in Florida, right? So if you want to go to the Keys, if you want to go to Mount Dora, if you want to go to Fernandina Beach, you want to go to St. Augustine, you want to go to Tampa, any of these areas in the state of Florida are going to be pretty touristy, right? So if you're living here locally, you're kind of like a ninja. You're going outside of those times because you don't want to deal with the mess of all the tourism. For example, I'll use St. Augustine because this is where I'm an expert. St. Augustine has a beautiful downtown, historic, cobblestone streets, horse-drawn carriages going through. A lot of the buildings in downtown St. Augustine are from the 1500s, and it's amazing. The architecture down here is great, but we also have beautiful beaches, great restaurant, great entertainment, great art, everything. We can really only, as locals, we can really only enjoy that outside of summer and outside of December, right? So you need to keep that in mind, especially when you have people, when you move down here, you're going to have people visiting. Those are going to be the peak seasons. Spring break, yeah, it gets a little busy. I wouldn't say it's anywhere near the peak of summer and the end of the year, which is December. And here in the state of Florida, like we mentioned before, we have so many people that come down during the winter months because they're like, I need a break from this cold. They come down here and they want to just get a little bit of a break, especially here in St. Augustine because we have our Night of Lights, which is where they take all of downtown, they cover it in Christmas lights, and they make it really beautiful. Got named like top 10 lights, I think, by National Geographic like several years ago. And ever since that got named top 10 lights, it's really been a shit show in terms of the tourism industry during that time. So I avoid it like the plague. I don't go downtown at all during that month because it's a pain. Now, me knowing that, me being a local expert, is that I know that January is going to come around the corner and it's going to be dead. So I'm going to be able to go down there. I'm still going to, they run the Night of Lights throughout the end of January for the locals. So I'm still going to be able to enjoy my downtown, go get a nice bite to eat, walk the waterfront, go to the fort. It's still going to be a really great thing to live here, even though you got to deal with the tourism. So that's one thing you got to know. Not only do you have to master the seasons in terms of like buying and selling a house here, right? We talked about that, the historical averages, but also you need to look at the tourism and when is the best time for you to enjoy your city. And it's going to be outside of the peak tourist time. And the fifth thing that is a secret that really only you're going to know once you live here is going to be mastering the weather. Now, of course, we have hurricanes here in the state of Florida. If you're in South Florida, you're going to be a lot more susceptible to hurricanes than we are here in northeastern Florida. Down there, you got to build with concrete block, hurricane impact windows, doors, all that kind of stuff. Here in northeastern Florida, because of our average wind speed and because we typically don't get hit with as many hurricanes as the rest of the state of Florida, we're still allowed to build with wood. We don't have to use hurricane impact windows. You still can, of course, if you'd like, but we don't have to do that here. So, of course, you got to know what's going on with hurricanes and what's your plan for them. Typically with them, we'll know about a week or a week and a half out and what you should be able to do. There are certain areas that will get evacuated, but at the end of the day, you don't have to leave at all. But the main thing that you want to know is you want to put a plan in place, right? If a hurricane does come through, you want to have a go bag. You want to get out of Dodge as quickly as possible, and you want to make sure that you have a place to go. Especially when there's a hurricane that's going to be a direct hit and it's like a category 4, category 5, like we experienced this past year. A lot of the hotels north, south, outside of the path of the hurricane are going to be booked solid because so many people are evacuating and leaving that area for the time being. So you want to make sure that you have a plan in place. Now, aside from hurricanes, we also have weather here in Florida that's hot, it's humid, and it's rainy. So you need to prepare for that. Very much like living in the Northeast, right? You gotta, when it gets cold out, you put 3 layers on, you go into a building, you take 1 layer off, you get into the heat controlled area, then you gotta take all your layers off because you're gonna be sweating. Here in the state of Florida, it's pretty much summer year round. We have about, I think the average degree during summer is like 72 or 75 degrees, so it's very comfortable year round. I think the average degrees during like the winter time is like 72 or 75 degrees throughout the winter months. During the summer, it's going to be probably somewhere between 85 and 95 degrees with 100% humidity. And all throughout the summer, we're pretty much getting a rainstorm every single day. So this means that the sky will be blue. The sun is shining the majority of the day. But then once 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock hits, we're going to get a torrential downpour for about an hour. And then like that, it's going to go right back to being sunny and beautiful. So you have to plan for almost like 2 different seasons every time you go out. So make sure you either keep an umbrella in your car or maybe a raincoat or something like that, because it's going to catch you off guard because it moves in quick and it goes out quick, just as fast as it came in. And just to add another anecdotal thing to that, most of the locals here know that if you're going to the beach during the summer, you want to get there as early as possible. Not only are you going to beat out most of the tourists that know this, but you're also going to beat out the sun. Typically when the sun gets to like 12, 1 o'clock on the beach, it's going to be brutal, right? So you want to get out of there probably like 11, 12 o'clock. So then you go get some lunch, you have the rest of your day to enjoy. So that is one little secret. Me and my wife, when we go to the beach, we typically get there around 9 o'clock, right? Hang out there for 3 hours or so. Then we load up, go get some lunch or go do something else for the rest of the day. So that's, that's probably the 6th tip I'll add, but that kind of goes with mastering the weather. All right, guys, and that is it. Those are the 5 secrets that only the locals know here in the state of Florida. If you have any questions about moving here to Florida, moving to St. Augustine, selling a home here in Florida, or selling in St. Augustine, make sure you reach out to me directly. All I try to do is give you the information so that you can make an educated decision on what you want to do, which is buy, sell, or invest here in Northeastern Florida. Until next time, guys, have a good one.